Welcome to the original Theme Park Podcast. This is your announcer, Neil Patrick Harris. And now, CoasterRadio.com.
Well, what I like about it, too, is, it's thrilling, but it's comfortable, if that makes sense, right?
Sure.
And I think that we intentionally made it longer than the other coasters. One is because everybody wants to be bigger, right? But the truth is also it makes the maneuvers more comfortable. If you condense the maneuvers, they're not comfortable. And I want guests to get off, want to get right back in line.
Yeah.
So.
What were your guys' ideas when you started? I heard you give an interview, said you wanted to open it up the lake, make an entrance statement. What do you feel like you've done as to accomplishing some of those goals you had?
So there were two things. So we always try to say, we try to be a little more high level when we start these conversations because, don't make the coaster blue. Let's do something. And the two challenges we gave to the design team were, one is, we're on Lake Erie. It's a great lake, but you can't see much of the lake from the park, so take advantage of that. And the second was, as I started to say to somebody else earlier, we wanted to reinvent the front gate, but every time we got around to it, we stole the money to do a ride. So could we bundle them together and come up with a really good excuse to blow up the front gate? And what we ended up with was a great ride on the lake, and I think an entry statement to the #1 amusement park in the world that is worthy of the #1 amusement park in the world. So I'm thrilled.
Can we expect more large front gate renovations in some of the other Cedar Fair parks?
Great question,
Thank
right?
you. Well, we're from Cincinnati, so Kings Island's our home park.
Kings Island entry is pretty damn good. Let's be honest, right? You come in, you got the fountains, the Paramount design with that. So I don't know that we'll play with the front of Kings Island. We may play with other things in Kings Island, right? I might leave it at that. But I wouldn't be surprised that there are other places in our portfolio where this type of thing, not the identical thing, would show up.
Great. Hang on, go ahead.
What's it like having all of you're how long have you been the CEO of Cedar Fair?
I've been the CEO for a little over a year.
Okay, so what's it like now to have like a dozen parks, right? Between the dry parks, the amusement parks, the water parks, having all of that, you being that having that responsibility. What is it, from your past background where you only had 2 parks?
Yeah. So I will tell you this, look, the #1 responsibility I have, and the only thing I lose sleep over is the number of people who we are responsible for their paychecks, right? I mean, and that I take very seriously. But beyond that, I've got one of the greatest jobs in the world, right? So, on a given day, do we build a roller coaster or buy some dinosaurs?
Yeah.
Right? And I think we're good business people because it's important. If you're not a good business person, you're not going to be around very long. But the most important thing we do beyond all that is just pay attention to the guests. Are they enjoying themselves? Are we taking care of them? Are they coming back year after year? And as one of my general managers in Canada reminds me, the #1 reason they're back is because they had a good time last year.
Yeah. So you took over after Dick Kinsel, who had been here for a number of years. Was there much transition time? Obviously, with Gatekeeper, you seem to have picked off exactly where he left off, and I think that's great. So from a guest perspective or someone who pays maybe a little closer attention to the theme park industry, it doesn't look like there has been any sort of, transitional pain.
Yeah, and I would tell you the number, I inherited 2 things when I got here. One was a great set of parks, and more importantly, a great management team. So I didn't make very many changes in the management team, and that's why the transition, I think, was as productive as it could be. And so I feel good about that. Everybody asked me, what was the #1 surprise? The #1 surprise is there weren't bad surprises.
It's a good surprise.
Yeah.
Great. Well, my wife and I took a trip a couple years ago to raise money for pancreatic cancer, and we visited 8 of the Cedar Fair parks.
Wow.
Everything east of the Mississippi. So Worlds of Fun, Valley Fair, Dorney.
You got to get to Knott's in Great America.
Yes, that's on the list. Yeah, that's a plane flight though. That's or a 2,500 mile car ride. So it's been interesting. Paying attention to that stuff. You could still see some differences between the old Paramount parks and the original Cedar Fair parks, Cedar Point, Valley Fair, and then they picked up Dorney. Is there a plan? Are we still trying to make all that feel like one brand?
No, I think we have 11 regional brands.
Okay.
And I think what I hope we do, though, is we steal part of the good ideas from each of the brand and mix them together, right? So what is a good idea in a Paramount Park might be a great idea in a Cedar Point Park, but to make them the same for the purpose of being the same, that's not good. And so there are a lot of things in the Paramount Parks that I think are great. I think their fountains are fantastic, right? The entry statements we talked about for Kings Island. That's probably something we should do in more of our parks, but not to make them the same. Because as you guys know, everybody has their home park,
right?
So when I ask people, the number one question I ask people when I meet them, where'd you grow up? And if they grew up, depending where they grew up, I know what their home park is, right? So Kings Island or Dorney, etc. No, but we also need to not be selfish enough or too prideful. If it's a good idea in Canada, it might be a great idea at Cedar Point, and that's what we got to think more about.
And I'm glad you say that. But from traveling, I realized all this stuff. Now I grew up in Toledo, so my park was Cedar Point. And I moved to Cincinnati, so it's Kings Island.
Okay.
There's not a lot of similarities between those two. But as you travel to some of the other parks, it's like, well, this ride exists. It's a copycat. It's here and here. It's like, why would I ever want to go to another regional park, a Cedar Fair park? And it's great that you want to keep them different. Like that. I'm glad to hear that.
I think some of that's different, and sometimes it's productive to do something similar. And the vast majority of our guests do not go to multiple parks.
Right.
The vast majority of our guests have 1 or 2, 3 days, great days of summer, and they come to one of them. And if you haven't been to Toronto, by the way, recently,
Leviathan.
It's really good.
Sure. Yep.
It's really good. So anyway, good.
What do you feel like you guys are doing to create the experience that the whole family can enjoy together? To create, I can't remember the exact term you've used in the past about the genetic
vacation behavior.
Yeah, genetic vacation behavior, where when you come here as a kid, your chances of bringing your kids back when you're a parent.
Yeah. So the real challenge for the industry and for us too is we've got great thrill rides, we've got great kids rides. There's not enough in the middle, and what I mean by that is rides that parents are on with their kids, that the parent is on not solely because of their kid, right? And so we've got to continue to work on that, and we've got some ideas that I say are on the drawing board, but are about to come off the drawing board that we'll put into, and this is one that will probably roll out to multiple parks, where I think the parent will have at least as good a time as their kids, and I think that's the sweet spot. Excuse me. That's a sweet spot that we got to tailor more attention to.
Great, man. So we'll get you out of here on this one. You've obviously been riding Gatekeeper now for a while. Left or right side, front, back, where's your favorite spot to enjoy the coaster?
Fourth seat, fourth row, left outside. And the reason I say that is because that's the one where I feel like the most, I'm on the wing the most. Now, everybody will have their favorite. Sure. And I just rode the front again. It's kind of nice when you're the boss. Excuse me.
Get out of the way.
Right? Do you ever leave your office in the middle of the day to go ride coasters?
Absolutely. Right?
We're in the wrong jobs, man.
Yeah. But more importantly, I leave my office to go watch and see what guests are doing. Right? And that's the most important thing we can do is, are you having a good time? How can we make it better? And look, we're never going to be perfect, but we should be pretty damn good.